Welcome back. Now the Mining Indaba 2026 wraps up today. We also have mining production figures for December, and by all indications, we're in a commodity boom. Gold and platinum are leading the boom, with prices having more than doubled over the past year. But due to the cyclical nature of the markets, what goes up eventually does, of course, come down. As an investor, the best way to manage this risk in the commodity market is with hedging strategies. And Opy Ramaremisa is the head of client solutions for corporates at Absa CIB, and he joins us for more of his insights. It'd be good to chat to you on Business Lunch. Here's the thing. Now, looking at those commodity prices, we all got very excited. But if you want to hedge, if you want to bet ahead, if you want to fix a price ahead, I mean, how do you even do this? It's on a roller coaster ride.
Oh yeah, from a corporate perspective, what we find most of the mining companies do is essentially enter into what we call commodity swaps, which effectively fix the price over the few quarters of production, right? But given where we are in the cycle right now, you find a lot of reluctance from these guys in terms of, call it, capping their upside, right? So what you do find still is the guys entering into contracts such as commodity puts, which essentially removes the tail risk in the event that maybe prices do drop, but at least they know they've got a floor such that they can ensure a level of certainty from that perspective. So yeah, so that's the where we find out the guys out there that yes, right now with the boom in pricing, they don't want to essentially lock themselves in and go and essentially cap their upside and miss out on more growth in prices, but instead they would essentially go and remove some of the downside risks that they face.
Yeah, right. Puts versus swaps, but that's interesting that you say that. However, the Trump administration has led to a lot of this volatility. You must agree that it's been up and down, and that's why gold is that safe haven. It's gone up. Any betting man, I suppose you can't really bet with people's money, but any betting man would say maybe put a future price in right now and you hedge it right now to where it is, because it might just come down if the president's removed or the situation changes.
That's indeed true. I mean, any risk management decision is there to try and remove any uncertainty, right? So we're currently in a world where there's a lot of uncertainty, so anything can happen at any given time, right? I mean, as Absa, there's many ways of expressing a view in terms of locking in these, or getting exposure to these, commodity prices. At Absa, we've got, what we call, gold ETFs. We've got platinum, ETFs. We've got, silver ETNs as well. So those are instruments which even a man on the street can essentially get and essentially participate in the boom which we're seeing in commodity prices.
Yeah. Opy, you are at the Mining Indaba. It's not over yet. You're at the Mining Indaba. What have people been saying there when it comes to commodities? What's the general sense of where we're going?
Well, I think, the main one is, there were those, call it, mines which, you couldn't really develop further because of where prices were, so there's an upbeat sense, in terms of, that additional shaft which you thought, what, the extra capital which you need in order to develop that, you couldn't essentially get it financed in where prices are. You're able to do that now, so there's a sense of very, optimism in terms of even where prices are likely to go going forward. So there was a lot. I mean, if you compare it to to like last year, yes, we were at the start of this boom, and yes, there is indeed a lot of volatility, but there is a sense of there's a whole lot of discussions in terms of what else can we do. Even the financial institutions out there are looking for some of these opportunities to fund and invest in and stuff. So there's quite a very optimistic mood which is happening there.
Yeah. All right. I mean, obviously, it's a difficult question for me to ask you, but where do you see commodities going? If you had to hedge, you had to bet ahead, if you had to fix a price, I mean, what would you be thinking?
Well, I mean, that's right. as you say, on the platinum side and the gold side, it's, there's a combination of issues which are driving these prices up, but if you look at, some of the base metals, it is also, due to the demand which is emerging, right? So if you look at things like, copper, I mean, it's a critical, metal which is required in terms of electrification, etc. So we believe, that is something which is likely to continue in its path. There are some commentators out there who feel like, oh, maybe gold price has done enough, and the same comments which we had, call it 6 months ago, and yet we recently breached the 5,000 dollars per ounce. So it is very difficult to try and say, this is the price target which one can get to, but one has to always, look at their own risk, profile and say, okay, well, is it, worth my while to enter the market at these levels, or maybe there's a slight pullback, and then you enter the market when there's a slight pullback, and you can still, participate in the upside.
Yeah. Is there too much emphasis on gold and perhaps platinum? You mentioned copper there. Do we need to look elsewhere and maybe put our money elsewhere just to be safe?
Well, I mean, if one wants to, participate in the commodity boom, there's two ways of doing it, right? So one is, through, as I said, the actual investing in the physical itself, or you can essentially invest in the shares, right? I mean, we've got a lot of call it gold, punters out there in the JSE, some platinum, players, etc. And slowly, you've got some who also have, exposure, or who mine, the coppers of this world, some money, and I want to, to still also participate in this current boom. How else can I do it instead of just going to the actual physical, which can also be a little bit, volatile. Yeah,
I hear you there, Opy. We'll have to leave it there. We're losing our signal a little bit, but a great conversation it really is, because wow, what a time to be alive at the moment. Opy, thank you so much. And that was Opy Ramaremisa, Head of Client Solutions for Corporates at Absa CIB.